Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all again. For those of you I missed at the beginning, I'm Cilla Ross. I'm Principal of the Cooperative College in Manchester. I'm absolutely delighted to have been asked to participate in this. Also, not least, because I went to Coleg Harlech and that through my trade union when I was a young woman. So I hold very dear Wales and its long and incredible traditions of radical education. So you're doing fantastic work. And it was great to hear the First Minister describe that a little bit and to meet those young people. So I'm responsible for the next session, and what we've got is an interactive session. So we've got 5 speakers, and each one is going to spend no more than 4 minutes on addressing a question. And that question is, how do we keep Owen's ideals burning brightly? So I think we actually need, I don't know if you've got a slide for that, Chloe. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And we're, as I say, very short presentations, and I'm going to be incredibly archaic and old-fashioned. I'd like them to keep an eye on me, and when there's a minute to go, I'm going to hold that up. And if they're really naughty and go on and on, I'm going to say stop. And the reason we're doing that is, you know, we want to get all of their expertise in addressing this question. And then what we're going to do is go into breakout rooms and continue to think about that question in terms of what we've heard from the people who have been presenting. Based on our own experiences too, there'll be a facilitator in each group. Don't worry about the technology. The great team from the college will help make that happen in terms of putting us in rooms. And there'll be a facilitator in there, and we'll ask you to put some bullet points together to answer that question. And then we'll come back and share our experiences widely, and I'll have a bit of a go at trying to pull it together. So I'm going to ask each speaker to introduce themselves, say what organisation they're from, and then to go into their 4 minutes. And I am going to be very bossy and tight, just so we can get things done, if that's okay. So can I begin by asking Michael Brown to join me in this space, please?
Can you hear me?
We can hear, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, diolch Cilla. Croeso i'r drenwydd, gan fy modd yn siarad o ddim ond ychydig cannoedd o fethrau o'r man y cafodd Robert Owen a'i eni a'i Maggie. Welcome to Newtown, and I'm speaking to you from just a few hundred yards from where Robert Owen was born and grew up. I think the 2 questions we've been asking is, what would Robert Owen be doing today, and how do we keep his ideals burning brightly? And for me, the answers would be he'd be working here in his hometown of Newtown, of course. And I think we've got many examples here of where his social development ideals and vision are being put into practice locally and are beginning to glimmer strongly. So I'm going to give a brief snapshot of some of these activities being put into practice by a number of us here who've been influenced strongly by his teachings and his legacy, and how these are practical examples of specific social development goals as drawn up by the United Nations. Many of you may know that Wales was the first country in the world to fully adopt the UN SDGs into law through our own Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, through which all our policy and our financial budgets are screened. So I believe Robert Owen would be using this act and its potential to his advantage to help attain his vision for a more equitable and sustainable economy. And I think in your pack, you'll see the list of the 17 SDGs, and I'll send you a table which I've drawn up, which shows where these overlap with our own 7 goals. And I've also related these to the 7 foundational principles of the Rochdale Pioneers, because they all resonate and read across. Around 30 years back here, we have a few cooperatives and social enterprises. We have the development board, mainly concerned with leveraging in outside investments or to incentivize relocation of private enterprise. And it was clear to some of us we needed to find ways to decolonize ourselves, in a sense, from external dependencies by creating sort of more of the foundational resources we need to build a more sustainable and ecological economy here. So we needed a more Owenite vision, and to make some big wins, we had to somehow get easier access to affordable capital, to control our own energy, and to own our own land. Those were some of the targets we'd set ourselves. So of those three, finance, the first challenge, which was looking at how do we bring and take more control over our own financial destiny. And this is one of the economic participation principles which the Rochdale pioneers highlighted, and it's within the prosperity for all within the Welsh SDGs. So what we did was we established the first rural credit union in the UK here in Newtown, and as a market town, it's hinterland. We also, on the sort of ideals of education, again a core SDG, we set up some of the first schools credit union offices, collection points, to teach the cooperative principles through savings to children across most of the primary schools in the region, in our area. And then about 10 years back, we set up a Robert Owen Community Banking, so alongside Robert Owen Credit Union, to provide capital and finance mainly to micro and new local businesses, startup businesses, and for energy-related investment. And literally hundreds of local homes now have been able to access affordable finance at zero interest for upgrading with domestic renewables, insulation, draft proofing, damp problems. And alongside that, we've established a community energy fund. So onto energy, the second big challenge. To capture energy into community ownership, we needed to find ways to de-risk these mainly cooperative startup companies. So following Owenite principles, we set this up with a mutual approach to lending, with members of the new sector, the emerging community energy sector itself, forming the loan assessment panels to identify the risks and to help leverage in equity through cooperative shares and cheaper forms of capital. And then finally, within land, we've got a number of different approaches, but certainly through my own company, we've now transferred, with the aid of Newtown Town Council, 140 acres of land into collective community ownership. And it's upon this we've now started to do things like, within 3 years, we're now halfway through a £1.6 million build of a new riverside venue, which will teach people about health, renewable energy, and new ways of doing business, mainly working off the land.
Thank you.
I saw the stop sign suddenly. So
I'm so sorry, Michael, and many apologies, okay, but absolutely fantastic. Thank you for coming to a very natural end, really interesting. Thank you. Can I pass over to Dan McCullum, please, and Awel Aman Tawe? I've got that correct. Forgive me if not.
Well done, Cilla.
Oh, thank you.
Other people have really struggled with that now. So Awel means wind. Yeah, just thinking about that sort of question about what Robert Owen would, how to keep the sort of ideals burning brightly. And it kind of strikes me that obviously he'd be using renewable energy to maintain that burning rather than fossil fuels. And that's what we've been involved with for the past 20 years. We've developed a community wind farm north of Swansea, and then a rooftop solar co-op called Cwmni. And in terms of the mutuality, so we've borrowed money actually from the fund that Mick talked about, the Robert Owen Community Banking Fund, and actually, we're really pleased to repay into that fund to kind of support further projects. The idea of mutuality. I think if Robert Owen was around now, he would be sort of actively engaged, especially in sort of the Extinction Rebellion movement. And that's one of the kind of movements, obviously, that's really inspirational to a lot of us, and a lot of young people as well. because it just brings about that sense of a shared action to kind of achieve change. And obviously it has achieved a lot and brought a lot of people involved in climate change action. And obviously the example of Greta Thunberg is brilliant. And certainly we've noticed it in terms of raising money for co-op energy. It's become easier because it's become more mainstream. So we've raised a total of sort of £15 million over the past kind of 5 years for energy projects, and Cwmni has now raised more than 4 million from its co-op share offer. And it actually has got easier. The key thing was kind of just making a start, and as I think as Sara said earlier, kind of being brave. One of the interesting things that we've done is develop an educational program, both looking at sort of renewable energy in schools, where we've got solar panels on schools, but also what it means to be a co-op member. So as part of our project, we've donated £500 of shares to each of the schools. We've got about 40 schools with shares in Cwmni Co-op. And the idea being that they'll begin to learn something about the co-op business model. They can attend our AGMs, participate in governance, and perhaps then, just become more familiar with what it means to be part of a cooperative and to kind of take action and then take further action as well. And we're working with a brilliant charity called Energy Sparks, which looks at sort of further actions that schools can take based on actual energy consumption in schools. So, working via the Eco Committee on further measures and behavioural changes. So there's a lot that can be achieved, and we look forward to being part of that in the future.
Thank you very much, Dan. And it is so nice to think of Robert Owen and Extinction Rebellion, because you can see that synergy, I can feel that synergy. That would be a very natural space for him to be agitating and being an activist. Thank you very much indeed. Sara Vicari, next please. Are you there? You've got your 4 minutes. Hello.
Thank you very much. So I'll share with you shortly a presentation. So, as Aroundtheworld.coop, we reflected how can we keep Owen's ideals burning brightly. And so just to recall what's this legacy, what is so important for us is really is inspiration to reimagine the world and change it collaboratively. So key words that we bring with us is community, collective action, innovation, and mutual learning and knowledge exchange. Then, can be storytelling a way, to catch the essence of what means really transforming the world and doing it cooperatively. And sometimes when we do this kind of work of storytelling, we focus a lot on what people do together. Rather, it's very, very important also to focus on who are the people that are doing this collective action, and how they do, and most importantly, why they do, what's the inner motivation for them to come together, which we think is really at the basis of cooperative identity. And when we tell stories, really covering all these aspects, we can really advocate and provide evidence about the impact that cooperatives bring for society and for development. This can be good for cooperators themselves because they can develop their common vision and contribute also to create a cohesion between the newcomers and funders and build around a common identity, and also then to present themselves to the society with this strong cooperative identity also as a brand. So these were all the discussion that moved us and was our motivation then on 2019 and 2020 to travel around the world in partnership with the International Cooperative Alliance and document different stories of cooperatives around the world, different sectors, different continents. Something that I really would like to share with you today is that at the end of what we put together is not a cooperative of video makers, is not what actually we are aiming to do, but is to work at the frontier of participatory action research and to have the possibility to share with the wider society these good practices in terms of collective action in an additional format, that is the audiovisual format. So not only writing up papers, not only writing up books that are fundamental, but complement this with videos where people can have a say and tell their own stories and decide how to tell stories. And that's why our methodology is based on a combination of participatory action research and video making. So our videos are open source. You can find them on the YouTube, our website, and they cover, as I say, the different sectors, covering different sectors in different continents. But when it comes, when we ask co-operators the impact of working with us in this way, in this audiovisual storytelling approach, was very interesting, of course, to see that this gave an opportunity of visibility to the co-op stories, just to mention the Argentinian co-op that was invited by the Pope to share the stories in his event. So it was absolutely an interesting outcome. And this is a way, of course, to promote the cooperative identity. But at the same time, if we link it up with the Owen's ideals, we would like to focus on these two aspects. So the possibility really to allow ourselves, but particularly youth and other communities, to reimagine the world that is how we can change it and how we can learn from each other, fostering innovation. So really this mutual learning approach, like actually in, Owen hosting in New Lanark, people wanted to study his ideal world. So now I give you back the question, to what extent storytelling can be an effective means to keep Owen's ideal burning brightly. And thank you very much. Of course, we are happy to keep and be in contact.
Sara, thank you so much. That was absolutely marvellous. Thinking about that notion of identity and the formation of character, and these days that sounds a bit sort of heavy and top down, but it was for the right reasons. It was about building that identity, wasn't it? But thank you so much for that. It was absolutely lovely and so great to think about storytelling, and the methodologies you were talking about there would have been absolutely what Owen would have liked. You know, he loved art and pictures and music and doing things differently. So thank you so much. The next person, Rory, welcome. Hello.
Right, I hope you can all see this. I'm the chair of the UK Society for Co-op Studies, and the argument I want to make is that we should continue emphasising the value of the cooperative model in the broader debate about the social economy and social enterprise. So what I want to just talk about is where we come to the idea of a socialised enterprise. It's very much in the European tradition of collective action, the strength of the labour movement, also the strength of the public sector, the focus on solidarity and mutuality, our responsiveness to stakeholders, our traditions of bottom-up democracy and the evolution of the third sector. So what I'm arguing for is to resist the US-style discourse on social purpose, to look at collective entrepreneurship, cooperative entrepreneurship, as opposed to the individual hero. Now, how do we come to learn what we mean by socialized enterprises? I don't know if you can see both of the number columns there, but we sent a survey out to 550 academics, consultants, postgraduate students to ask them how the different characteristics which had been ascribed to social enterprise encourage socialization as opposed to social purpose. And so we explained what we meant by socialization and social purpose. And this slide captures many of the cooperative principles and cooperative values. And they clearly, this group of people, we had 136 responses, they emphasized that the cooperative model leads to the socialization of wealth and the socialization of ownership. I'll skip, in the interests of time, to the other side, which is the sort of charitable end of this equation. Now, in keeping Robert Owen's stuff alive, he was a philanthropist. We have to remember he was an advocate of the cooperative movement, but he was also a philanthropist. He did believe in, producing goods and services for the community, but also he had an agenda and a vision for society as a whole. So he was balancing off mutuality and philanthropy. But I think we've got to keep reminding people what we mean by mutuality. We've got to keep reminding people that the cooperative model of social enterprise produces better results than the philanthropic model of social enterprise. So my final argument, I hope I'm within time here, is only mutual trading has the potential to benefit and reward all parties involved in and affected by an enterprise and creation. What we call responsible trading, even if it's sort of got a social angle to it, is still structured largely to benefit financial investors more than the people involved in the enterprise. And we shouldn't forget that. And I also think philanthropic trading doesn't benefit enough people. We need to emphasize mutuality in order to extend the reach of the benefits that come from our advocacy of cooperative and social enterprise. So mutuality reduces the need for philanthropic trading, and I think it would also satisfy our criteria for responsible trading, but within a cooperative model. And I think that will help keep Owen's ideas alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rory. Really succinct, really thoughtful, challenging and interesting. Thank you so much. And we have our final contribution, please. Ceri Cunningham and Selwyn Williams on network community enterprise. Are you there? And hello.
Hello. Yeah, hello. I'll talk for 1 minute and 43 seconds and then Sal can take over. Pnawn da pawb. I'm Ceri Cunningham from a social enterprise cooperative in Ffestiniog, North Wales, called Cwmni Ffestiniog. And we're a network of 14 to 15 social enterprises in a town of 8,000 people, and we employ over 150 people locally. So all the social enterprises are involved in stuff like community tourism, environmental projects, youth work, youth homelessness, community energy projects, and we have the only opera company in the world who sings through the Welsh language. We also have our local kind of digital communication called Broadcast Ffestiniog, where we're trying to devolve the media to a local level. So the videos that were talked about earlier, we do something similar in Ffestiniog or the Ffestiniog area, where we raise awareness about local issues, but how we can cooperate to tackle them. I think from Robert Owen, I think it's this idea of reliance from, or independence from dependence is where we're headed. We are now networking with other Slates Valleys. For those of you aware of North West Wales, there's also Pen y Groes and Bethesda that used to be industrial heartlands as well. So we've reached out now and we're working with social enterprises in those areas. And I'll hand you over to Sel now, who will discuss probably where we're going next with this network of networks and communities of communities.
Hi, yes, you can all hear me. The connection has been going on and off a bit, so hopefully we're still in contact. Yeah, just to add to what Ceri was saying, the next sort of step in networking is on a Wales level. This sort of model of community development and mutual working, we've extended that really as a model which other areas are adopting, as Ceri mentioned, some of the other Slates Valleys, but also Anglesey. They've looked at our model and have now established something called Bro Morn, which is a network of social enterprises on Anglesey. The next step is for us to do that for North West Wales, and we're also now working with several other organisations across Wales to develop a community movement for Wales that would bring social enterprises together. And I think for me, one of the main lessons from Owen, that we need to be critical of ourselves, in the same way that Owen was critical of the fact that we haven't been able to establish socialism, despite the fact that as an idea, it seems so obvious, that the failures of capitalism are so obvious. How come 250 years later, we're still in this situation? And I think for that, we need to be aware of the question of power. And it's only late in his life that Robert Owen came to criticize himself about doing more than establishing an example and examples of what society could be like, but also politics and change is about power, and we need to create power for change. That, to me, is one of the big lessons for today.
Thank you so much. Another incredible example. And I was just thinking of, I think that's so true. And another Welshman who I'm passionately interested in, Raymond Williams, of course, it's another anniversary this year around that, and the resources of hope that he wrote about, and that frankly Owen must have been thinking he'd developed as he came up with so many of these ideas, and here we still are. So thank you. Again, another thought-provoking short contribution, provocation, and thank you so much, everyone. And also, Robert Owen would have been absolutely thrilled with that level of discipline. So thank you very much, because he was quite keen on discipline. So thank you. Can I just remind all speakers if they kindly send their slides to Chris, I think it is David, so that we can keep them or put them into the final edit if they're comfortable with that. It'd be really, really useful if you use slides, if we can share them out. That'd be fantastic, to Chris Meadows, that is. And now we move on to the next stage. Am I right with that, David? Is that going to Chris, or hello, Chris? Well, send them to Chris Meadows, that'd be great. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Chris has put his email in the chat. So, okay, here we go. We're now going to go into our breakout rooms. We're going to do it in a way that's been devised. We've got a facilitator in each room and someone who is then going to give feedback. In group 5, we'll decide on that when we actually get in the room. But if we could go ahead, go into our groups now. I think we've roughly got 15 minutes now because we've run a little over time. Then we'll feedback. You'll be putting together 3-ish bullet points around that idea. How do we keep Owen's ideals burning brightly? You've heard some great stuff. You'll have lots of ideas. What else can we add to this discussion? So if you'd like to take us into breakout rooms, that would be great. Thanks.